And then, of course, we're going to transition. It's time to talk about Bo Nickal. Yeah, I've been grinding that axe a little bit. I don't think my man deserves the spot, but it's here. So we turn the page, we celebrate it, we preview it, we talk about it. No one better to talk about when it comes to rising stars, because this guy spots them a long time ago, and then he breaks them down, and he knows all the details. Dan Tom, he's got a great podcast, Protect Your Neck. He's been doing it for years, taking a little bit of a break while he went to Thailand and sharpened up his own skills. He's fought before. He's trained. He's got black belts. He's a stud. What's up, Dan? How are you? Looking great.
Hey,
man.
what's going on, man? I appreciate the compliments, and I'm definitely no Bernard Hopkins, but I'll be the executioner if you're grinding the axe, because we probably have some similar talking points, but I'm excited to chop it up with you nonetheless.
Well, let's start with that then. Yeah. Who would you have put instead of Nickal and Brundage?
Oh, easy. Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. For one,
What?
it's the Joe Silva lightweight tried and true method. You can't go wrong with lightweights. Perhaps off the top of my head, maybe there's another lightweight fight on the prelims, but absolutely, this guy's paid his dues. You want to talk about paying your dues? Jim Miller has paid his dues. This company's been built on the back of guys like Jim Miller, who've been there 100 in the prelims. UFC 200, opening up the show as the curtain jerker. Let's give this guy a main card. I mean, he shouldn't be here. It's like the thing I always say, folks, like celebrating guys like Pantoja or Dubronx while they're on top. They shouldn't be here, folks. And guys like Jim Miller, guys like anybody, girls like anybody should not be here for this many UFCs, folks. Respect.
Dan,
Right.
I just want to make sure you're aware that Kayla Harrison is making her debut against Holly Holm on this card, right? Making sure you didn't forget about that one.
I would definitely put that over Bo Nickal and Cody Brundage, to your point, Danny. But my Jim Miller fandom, it'll probably be like here and here, but the Jim Miller fandom definitely tips it over for me. But also to your point, promotionally, if they wanted to go the promotional card and away from the hardcore fan taste, which I totally get, to your point, Danny, that makes much more sense, right?
Yeah.
I think Jim Miller
that was
earned it,
questionable.
man.
Go ahead. Go. Sorry.
I think he's earned it, dude. What he's done, what Dan said, like what he's done has been absolutely phenomenal. In a way, he is like Mr. 300. Like to get to this point, I thought he deserved a spot on the main card just for that.
Honestly, you guys might have won me over. So yeah, maybe I'll back that up.
Dan, is Cody Brundage the right step up for Bo Nickal at this point in his career? Like he said, he goes, I think he hasn't faced anyone as tough as me. He told Goz and I that. He says, I train with Anthony Smith. I train with Rob Wilkinson, and a few other killers over there in Denver. And he's saying, I don't think I'd be as big of an underdog with them, and I can hang with them.
I do think Cody Brundage is, always a live underdog, especially, you're going to put this big of a number next to him, right? We've seen him get finishes in the first round. I know that Malkoon one, may be a little deceptive if you're just reading it off the record, but the guy trains with legit talent. And, I've definitely, backed him as an underdog before. And I will say, even though I am vehemently against, middleweights and anything above middleweight opening up a card. I mean, again, men's featherweight, men's lightweight, your problem is solved. It's the perfect balance. You need to think no more about it. However, kicking it off with Cody Brundage's walkout song, a guy comes out to Mariah Carey. I mean, sign me up. I mean, that is one benefit I will say of this matchup coming up first. We're going to start the main card with some sweet jams because I imagine Brundage will be making the walk first.
Is that your go-to karaoke, Dan?
Oh, I can't get those highs. I'm a sloppy baritone at best. I can't get the Mariah Carey highs in that song. Don't even make me try.
Dan, I know you like people to pay their dues in this sport. We can't just give them their flowers too early, but is Nickal got future champ? Does that hype belong to him just yet? Have you kind of seen it when you've broken this guy down?
Now, even though, I want to jump right into my critiques of the matchmaking and not be, the cheerleader. We're media. I'm an analyst, so I got to, be unbiased. I can't be, the UFC's PR cheerleader or whatnot, for these things. But what I will say regarding middleweight, as much as I tend to crap and kind of take some shots at it, it is the division. Maybe you could count this as taking another shot at it, but maybe it's backhanded compliment. But it is the division where you could still be a specialist, right? Like you could still be a Ronda Rousey and get to the top, which, it says some things about the division, right? Whether you're a specialist striker, as we've seen, or even just like a specialist submission guy, you can get pretty far, right? Going, back to the days of Damian Maia, you might not get to the title, but you can get all the way up to a title shot. if you are a specialist of sorts. So the fact that Bo Nickal is a specialist in the grappling department, he can actually add some submissions to his wrestling as well. Like, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see him as a champ, but at the same time, here I am crapping on 185 again. I don't know how impressive that is to say. It's not like we're talking about lightweight or bantamweight here, right?
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Danny? Has the UFC gotten ahead of themselves? This guy's on the main card, and apparently the numbers do pop. But goddamn, just because the numbers pop, he might just be a charming fella. He is a stud in the collegiate world. I get all that, right? And he has gone out there and done his job. But do you think he's a future champion? Do you think they're seeing him as that, or just cha-ching, he registers?
He's definitely a star in the making. He's already a star in the wrestling world, and I think he's going to be a future star in MMA as far as headlining events, fight nights, this and that, and just being an important player at 185. Champion, I do think if you want to make early predictions, I think this is a fighter that is good in putting in that category. But to be 100% certain, I want to see more. I want to see, we know the wrestling's there, but I want to see a little bit more of the striking. I want to see a little bit more of composure. I want to see a little bit of fight management, right? Not just it just feels like he kind of just goes in there, bulldozes his opponent, and it's great. You can do that because you're so good. But what happens when you cannot? Can you implement a game plan? Can you have different strategies? Can you have plan A, plan B? That's what I want to see from Bo Nickal. So,
almost like Hamza, like when he started showing some chinks in the armor against Burns, and
very similar,
and
very
similar.
similar.
Like, let's see what you really got, and so we can kind of gauge if you are championship material. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. For Hamza, we've pretty much only seen one gear, but at least we've seen it against high-level opponents. Like beating Kamaru Usman tells you something, right? Like, I don't care if you're a little bit bigger than him, whatever it is. If you beat that guy, period. If you're a heavyweight and you beat that guy, you must know something. You must be doing something right. Kamaru Usman is a complete stud. Same thing with Kevin Holland and other opponents he's faced in the past. Bo Nickal's not there yet. All the names that he's faced are decent, but not high caliber. Certainly not former UFC champions. So I just want to see a little bit more fight management. I just want to see a little bit of the gears turning in his head once they're in the fight and less of the instinct, because that's what we've seen so far. Just the instinct, the raw talent. I want to see some of that smart.
Because when we talked to Brundage, he seemed confident and he didn't seem to have a chip on his shoulder about the fact that he's getting overlooked. We talked about the odds between Little Nog and Sokoju. We told him about the UFC 300 promo, and you can hear Joe Rogan saying this is the biggest upset ever in the show. And Matt Sarah, how big of an upset would this be if he takes out Bo Nickal on this huge stage that is UFC 300?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know that it would be the hugest thing of all time, because I think the odds are just inflated in Bo Nickal's favor way too much. This is mixed martial arts, and Bo Nickal just doesn't have a huge history of mixed martial arts for us to be doing that. Cody Brundage, he packs a punch. It could happen, right? But chances are, I kind of like where Bo Nickal is, where he's going. I think he earned the right to be on UFC 300, maybe not the right to be on the main card, but I see a lot of things in him that I saw in an early Daniel Cormier and the development of his game. I just think every fight he's going to get better and better. If it happens, better it happen now than later.
Mm-hmm. Dan, before we let you go, aside from this Bo Nickal fight, I got to take advantage of the fact that we have you here. What's just something people need to look out for at UFC 300? As you've been pouring through some footage, is there something that stood out to you that probably doesn't stand out to most people, like that's just kind of got you excited, giving you goosebumps?
Well, I still got a whole ton of footage to go through, especially on this card. But I will say, especially since the promotion has turned to promoting, like, look how many, former champions we have, and kind of leaning away from the main event after it got announced, right? I will say, though, in their defense, like, you really should be showing up early. And I'm going to specifically cite the first fight of the night. I believe that so far it's listed, which is Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt, which I'm a big fan of, bantamweights, or even the lighter guys where Figueiredo came from. However, I will say I do want the winner of Peter Yan specifically for this fight, because I have been calling for Deiveson Figueiredo versus Peter Yan as the best MMA fight you can make that gets even a jaded old curmudgeon like me excited, okay? Since 2018 now. It's almost too late to do it. You finally have another pocket where it makes sense. It's not like a vet versus vet makes sense that they keep dropping the ball with, like Aldo versus Dominic Cruz, for Christ's sakes. Too busy booking middleweights to open cards. Matchmakers are force feeding us heavyweights on fight night main cards. Yeah, give us Peter Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo. for the culture.